The Baskerville family had a loyal hound named Vikir, also known as Ben Baskerville. He devoted his life to his family and their leader. However, he was wrongly accused of betrayal and faced execution by guillotine. Vikir wished for a new life, hoping to be a predator instead of a hound. Suddenly, he woke up again but found himself feeling lost and heavy, surrounded by loud noises. Unaware that he was reborn as a baby, he thought he was in hell. The story begins at the Baskerville estate, where many crying babies are seen in a room. Hugo, the patriarch, curses at the noisy babies, wondering if any of them are special. He notices one quiet baby, the reborn Vikir, amidst the chaos. Hugo orders to move the babies, including Vikir, to a specific place, revealing his anger towards Vikir for sentencing him to death. He's figuring things out, realizing this is the younger version of Hugo. So, it seems he has somehow gone back to being a baby. Here, we learn about Vikir's background. He was born into an illegitimate branch of the Baskerville family, lacking proper training and resources. Vikir spent his life working as a hound, handling tasks like assassination, reconnaissance, and threats for the family. These hounds are devoted to their missions, doing the family's tough jobs. However, because of this group of loyal servants, the Baskerville family gained prominence among the 7 families. The reason for Vikir's loyalty was straightforward. He simply wanted recognition from the family. 10 years after the demonic realm's gate opened, humans emerged victorious in the fight against the demons. Vikir, after a lifetime of hard work, faced a cruel fate, being targeted for knowing too much. As a newborn, he clenches his tiny fists, determined to alter his destiny this time around. Seeking revenge is tough in a baby's body, but he sees the Cradle of Swords as a chance to grow stronger. It's a challenge all Baskerville newborns go through, a maze filled with swords. After the maze, they face the Styx River to test their abilities. The river's unique power turns children's bodies into iron, but it has limits on how many it can affect unless the head bathes in it first. Speed is crucial in the maze, something Vikir couldn't manage before. Now, he plans to seize all the blessings for himself this time. As Vikir plunges into the river, it surprises everyone watching. He either sinks or submerges, feeling the water entering his wounds. His body signals to rise for air, yet he persists in enduring as much as possible. Hugo's men rush to rescue the child, but Hugo finds it amusing. He asks how much time has passed. 7 minutes, they say. Hugo orders the boy to come out, but Vikir continues absorbing as much as he can until his lungs fail him. Despite his efforts, consciousness slips away. Impressed, Hugo retrieves him from the water, noticing Vikir's greed for the river's power. Hugo also observes that Vikir has teeth already, unusual for his age. He inquires about the child's name and learns it's Vikir Fen Baskerville, prompting a smile as it seems he has a very ambitious son. Determined, Vikir hardens his resolve, vowing to use every moment in his new life to ensure the Baskerville family fades into history as just another tale. Vikir Van Baskerville was raised as an illegitimate child. By the age of 8, he displayed remarkable talent, earning the label of a genius. However, by 20, he appeared merely average compared to his family. At 29, he undertook missions involving assassinations, espionage, and conquests. By then, he had achieved the pinnacle of swordsmanship. When he turned 30, the demonic realm opened, sparking a demonic invasion. Surviving through the onslaught, he slew countless demons by the age of 35. At 39, the war concluded. Sadly, at 40, despite a lifetime of service, Vikir faced death as his reward. Vikir wakes up in his bed, unsure of his location. He happily realizes that he absorbed the power of the Styx River, giving him a much better starting point. A woman with a blue chest places something on his bed as per Madam's request. Vikir overhears complaints from the attendants, and suddenly, a mysterious aura emanates from the box, summoning 2 venomous snakes, bloody mambas. He quickly assesses the situation. Did the madam send these vipers to assassinate him? There are only a few women in the family associated with that title. Whoever it is, she's likely trying to eliminate competition. As the snakes charge, Vikir knows an ordinary baby wouldn't stand a chance. But he's not ordinary. He grabs both snakes by their necks, squeezing the life out of them, vowing to end his corrupt family. The next day, attendants are shocked to find Vikir sleeping peacefully next to the dead vipers. All the nannies from that night were executed after torture, yet Hugo still can't uncover how the vipers appeared. Only Vikir knows the truth. Fast forward 8 years, Vikir is sitting in a class learning about swordsmanship levels. The beginner can't infuse a sword with power, while an expert can do it slightly. Those who can fully envelop their sword graduate, and masters can manipulate the aura's shape and size. Hugo, the strongest Baskerville, is a sort of master. Vikir, still plotting to regain his powers, seems disinterested. The teacher notices, but Vikir, unlike other kids, grasps concepts quickly. His 7 minutes in the Styx River gifted him a strong body. The patriarch should be pleased with his progress. Despite being 8 years old now, Vikir eagerly waits for the day he'll be strong enough to take down Hugo. We meet a blonde-haired kid taunting Vikir, calling him garbage, accompanied by his 2 followers. Vikir recalls these 3. They had betrayed him before when he was falsely punished, known as the Hugos. These triplets, named High, Middle, and Low, are all 9 years old and seem to share one mind. With a knife pressed against Vikir's throat, he considers putting these troublemakers in their place. High, the apparent leader, aims to test a rumor about Vikir's body being made of steel. Low sneaks up behind Vikir, clasping his mouth shut to see how long he can hold his breath. 10 minutes pass, yet Vikir remains unaffected, astonishing the boys with his endurance. They reluctantly release him, admitting they're no longer enjoying themselves. However, Vikir isn't done yet. He retaliates by biting off one of Lobro's fingers, causing him to scream in agony. With a smirk, Vikir taunts them about losing a pet. 2 of the brothers claim they aren't afraid, but Lobro, in pain, disrupts his brothers by acknowledging Vikir's craziness for biting off his finger. The brothers try to calm Lobro, suggesting they visit a priest to fix his finger. Vikir, however, questions who gave them permission to leave. High grabs a knife, asserting his authority as Vikir's older brother, attempting to stab Vikir's stomach but is shocked to find his blade ineffective against Vikir's skin. Vikir grabs High's arm, dismissing the importance of age and challenging them to continue their game a little longer. The brothers scream in terror, realizing the rumors about Vikir were true as he begins to strike them. Terrified and in tears, the boys plead for mercy, but Vikir reassures them that they'll be healed afterward. He prevents their escape, picking up the dropped knife and teasingly offers to let one of them go. Trembling with fear, the 3 boys wonder who might be spared. Vikir, however, hands them a knife and tells them only one can survive, urging them not to take too long as he's impatient. He closes the door, leaving the boys to confront the reality of their dire situation. Meanwhile, sounds of a scuffle are heard in the other room where Vikir is not present. Suddenly, the notorious trio of Baskervilles is no more. The scene shifts to Hugo being informed about a bloody situation. A clan is claiming ownership of the ruby mine within their territory. Hugo plans to wait for their move and inquires about more news. The man informs Hugo that Vikir scored highest in the juvenile exam, and the practical exam is scheduled in 5 days, with all guardian knights prepared. Then, there's another topic. Apparently, a fight broke out among the triplets, resulting in critical injuries but no casualties. The mental toll is substantial. Hugo is puzzled as the triplets never fought among themselves, but he learns it was a result of their altercation with Vikir. Hugo summons Vikir to his quarters, asking sternly why he incapacitated the triplets in his senior class. Vikir is perplexed, as he thought they would have been healed by now. However, Barrymore continues, explaining that the issue isn't physical but rather mental. The 3 siblings refuse to come near each other now. Their combined technique used to be effective, but their relationship is now shattered. Vikir continues to smile, unfazed by the situation, as Hugo questions whether his actions were wrong. Vikir dismisses any sense of wrongdoing, stating that he doesn't believe the stronger person can be in the wrong. Hugo mentions that the brothers have come forward and forgiven Vikir, but Vikir scoffs at the notion of forgiveness. He recounts an incident from his past life when a victim of Baskerville ruin forgave Hugo. However, Hugo dismissed forgiveness as an excuse for the weak who couldn't seek revenge. Vikir, without hesitation, echoes these words, piquing Hugo's interest even more. Hugo agrees that weakness is akin to sin and emphasizes that only the strong will endure. He praises Vikir for understanding the family motto and instructs Barrymore to allow Vikir access to any snacks from the food storage that he can carry. Vikir casually asks for chocolate and turns to leave. Hugo advises Vikir to excel in the interim exam and not to lose to the direct descendants, expressing his wishes for his success. Hearing Hugo's display of affection unsettles Vikir, but he maintains his facade. Inside the food storage, Vikir heads towards the famed chocolate, favored by the more prestigious members of the clan. It's considered the finest quality chocolate available. However, Vikir isn't interested in the actual chocolate. Instead, he wants the cocoa beans. Barrymore is puzzled, but he hands Vikir a bag of raw cocoa beans. Unknown to Barrymore, one bean can yield 100 liters of chocolate. Vikir eats one of the beans and shows visible disgust. Barrymore assumes Vikir simply loves chocolate but notices Vikir's ingenuity within the set restrictions, allowing him virtually unlimited chocolate. Impressed, Barrymore asks if Vikir wants the beans processed and sent to his room, but Vikir declines, stating his desire for the raw beans, leaving Barrymore even more perplexed. Vikir's plan doesn't involve consuming the chocolate. Instead, he intends to use the raw beans during the upcoming practical exam in 5 days. With a smile, Vikir anticipates a catastrophic event that has never happened within the clan before. The Baskerville family name originates from Berserk family. Their children undergo early martial arts education, starting from their first steps. They're compelled to ascend a mountain and sleep beside a deceased monster, a test concluding by the age of 8, as all young hounds begin their perilous assessment, the survival exam. This rigorous evaluation occurs in the Rouge Mountain, an area abundant with monsters on the outskirts of their territory. Pavlov van Baskerville, the instructor, elucidates the exam's rules. Surviving earns 10 points, while surviving without impairment garners 30 points. Failing another hound yet surviving yields 50 points, while defeating a monster and surviving grants 70 points. Completing all conditions awards 90 points. Stealing badges from fellow hounds is another means to score points, with death resulting in 0 points. Vikir recalls Hugo's lesson about the downfall of a swordsman due to arrogance. Pavlov advises the young masters to stick to designated areas as the mountain holds many uncharted dangers. It's wise to hunt only the prepared monsters in the specified zones. During the exam, shadow dogs covertly observe and assess each hound. While some boys gossip about Vikir's rumored deeds, he remains silent, contemplating his return after a long absence. Ahead of him are the triplets, desperately avoiding his gaze. Pavlov instructs the boys that when the bell rings, the exam will begin, wishing them luck. As the bell tolls, everyone scatters, some seeking prime spots within the specified zone, while others form alliances to target fellow hounds. The triplets move together, but their teamwork appears ineffective. Pavlov takes a drag from a cigarette, explaining that while killing others is strictly prohibited, it's strongly discouraged. Deductions occur for taking a hound's life, motivating everyone to avoid lethal actions and minimize casualties, to the satisfaction of the shadow dogs observing. Meanwhile, the overseer observes Vikir heading towards a restricted area, intrigued by his genius and eager to see how he handles the test. Vikir approaches a colossal dead tree, considering it as his temporary shelter. While other kids engage in combat, Vikir leisurely builds a hut, spending his days resting and working on something, a puzzle to onlookers. Days pass, and Vikir's activities puzzle the observer. Instead of fighting monsters, Vikir focuses on relaxing, digging, and gathering materials. The observer questions the authenticity of the rumors about Vikir, contemplating leaving him alone as he seems to hide. As the observer departs, Vikir smiles, realizing he's now undisturbed. The solitude during camping reminds Vikir of the past. In a flashback, a friend informs him about the potency and taste of cocoa beans. Vikir tosses the beans into the fire, glad to be alone, signaling the start of his actual hunt. Unseen by others, he sets traps while appearing nonchalant. Days later, inside the restricted area, Vikir searches for something specific. The scent of burnt tree roots leads him to a burning pile of excrement, a sign of a hellhound's presence. Finally encountering the massive fiery wolf charging energy, a system prompt reveals the creature's B+ risk rating among the local hellhounds. It's been years since Vikir confronted a wolf. In his previous life, he couldn't face these creatures until he reached 18. At his current age of 8, he still can't take them head on. However, Vikir devises a plan that could enable even an infant to defeat this monster. As the hellhound charges, Vikir swiftly maneuvers, aware of the beast's weaknesses. The first vulnerability, the creature moves only in straight lines and struggles with changing directions. Vikir exploits this, deftly slipping past the hound. The second weakness, hellhounds can't traverse water. Splashing a line of water at its feet causes a significant slowdown. Moreover, when the beast moves in this way, it exposes a common vulnerability among canine monsters. They open their mouths while running. Dodging the hound's attack, Vikir flicks a cocoa bean into its mouth, causing the creature to collapse. It appears that chocolate is toxic to dogs, proving lethal in this case. Ordinary chocolate wouldn't have worked, but a cocoa bean, capable of producing 100 liters of chocolate, has a devastating effect. Vikir chuckles at the irony that even hellish dogs succumb to a bit of chocolate before drawing his sword. With precise strikes, he dissects the monster, targeting the only area unprotected by its tough ribs, the kidneys. Piecing the beast, he delivers a final blow to end its suffering and collects its energy known as XP. Killing a monster accumulates XP, enhancing one's abilities within the body. Vikir notices a change in his sword. It feels lighter, indicating that he's swiftly regaining his previous strength. He wonders how Hugo will react when an 8-year-old brings back a B+ risk monster. Vikir sets his sights on a special book that he once deemed unattainable in his past life, but now it might be within reach. As Vikir moves to claim the monster's head, he hears approaching footsteps. Several more hellhounds appear, but Vikir remains undaunted, intending to take down more than just one. Suddenly, a powerful wave of bloodlust grips the monsters, causing them to cower. This surprises Vikir as these creatures typically don't submit, even in the face of certain death. Turning around, he confronts a 3-headed beast, an 8+ risk-rated monster, unusual in this habitat. Vikir observes it bleeding and realizes it's being pursued. Across the mountain range, a barbarian tribe resides, and Vikir speculates that this beast fled from them. He recognizes this as his best chance to defeat such a highly rated monster. Determined to succeed, Vikir conceals his true strength and status as a Swordmaster. He's mastered the Baskerville's third technique, reaching a level typically achieved by adult hounds. Toting his sword in aura, he charges at the monster, slashing its head. With each strike, his confidence grows, recalling the lessons from the demonic war about efficient movements. Vikir reels from a powerful blow, feeling searing pain in his left arm. Checking the damage, he's relieved to find that while it's deeply cut, it's not torn off. Though useless for now, Vikir is pleasantly surprised. Suffering only deep cuts after an encounter with an 8+ risk monster is unprecedented. Is this the true might of the serverless? Despite the injury, Vikir gains newfound vigor and skillfully dodges the beast's charge. However, he knows luck might not favor him again. Faced with a tough battle, he must think like an experienced hunter and find a way to triumph. The best option is to flee. Grateful for the intervention of the barbarian tribe that diverted the beast's attention, Vikir spots a fence. He knows beyond it lies the campsite where he set his traps. Frantically searching, he spots a cave just as the serverless is about to pounce. With a daring leap, Vikir narrowly escapes the monster's jaws, causing it to fall into one of his traps. Landing on his back, Vikir welcomes the serverless to his version of the Cradle of Swords. Regaining his composure, Vikir is surprised to see his traps effectively working on the serverless. He had prepared them specifically for this species and coated the blades with bloody bean essence, slowly sapping the monster's life force. The creature coughs up blood, indicating its weakening state. However, Vikir knows it won't perish quickly. He prepares a poison-laced spear and hurls it into one of the beast's heads. The serverless rises from the trap, but Vikir counts silently. By the 7th step, the creature collapses, dead. Curiously satisfied, Vikir confirms the rumor the venom from the bloody mambas on the spear incapacitated the monster, unable to take more than 7 steps before succumbing. Vikir absorbs all the XP from the monster, but he ponders how he'll transport it. The cause of death is apparent, and he hopes the Guardian Knight will support him, having witnessed Vikir prepare all the tools. However, there's another task at hand for him. Serverless creatures usually guard nearby dungeons, acting as gatekeepers to protect territories. Dungeons are enigmatic places that hoard treasures and serve as lairs for powerful monsters. As Vikir has dispatched the serverless, he can explore and claim the rewards inside. To deter smaller monsters from bothering him, Vikir covers himself with the beast's feces and retraces its path. Following the trail, he soon discovers the dungeon. This place was known to him from his past life, revealed only years later when it was already emptied. Now, the scenario is different. Vikir descends into the dark abyss beneath the surface. The depth remains unseen, yet he anticipates the treasures waiting for him with a smile, excited to unveil what lies within. Curious, Vikir journeys through the cave, guided by veins of ruby that illuminate his path. He realizes they must be linked to the Red Owl Mountain. Suddenly, an ominous room appears, filled with a red glow, and a pedestal bearing a large ruby-emitting mana. Next to it lies a skeleton, indicating someone had attempted this before him. Inspecting the deceased, Vikir finds a letter written by someone named Cain in Baskerville handwriting. The letter warns future generations not to repeat Cain's mistake. Cain and his brother spent years in this dungeon, facing trials and slaying monsters to reach this chamber. Intrigued by the stone's value, Vikir reads the instructions engraved on it. Enter as 2, inside as 1, leave as 1. Cain's brother struggled to interpret this cryptic message, realizing they were twins who became separate after birth. The text implied reuniting as 4-1 entity, meaning only one could leave with the treasure. In a tragic turn, Cain killed his own brother in a desperate attempt to comply with the enigmatic instructions. Despite the sacrifice, nothing changed. The guilt and madness that followed led Kane to abandon the chamber, leaving the letter as a cautionary tale that the dungeon brings no value, only torment to humans. Understanding the story, Vikir knows he doesn't have a twin, yet the assignment remains the same. He speculates that the brothers misinterpreted the text. Determined, Vikir believes no dungeon is insurmountable. Vikir gazes upon the skeleton and chuckles softly to himself. Kane and Abel were unfortunate, their companionship clouded the real solution. Amidst the dark passages, he discovers a chamber illuminated by a glaring stone. The riddle lies within the dungeon's depths. Upon entering, it represents one. Yet when the ruby casts a shadow, Vikir comprehends the answer. He shatters the stone with his bare hands, extinguishing the light. Now, he has become one again. The solution lay in the shadow. A smile graces Vikir's face as he completes the trial and spots a relic of the dungeon, a demonic sword named Beelzebub. Inscribed, it declares that only those of Baskerville lineage can wield it. The name sends a shiver down Vikir's spine. He never knew this legendary sword originated here. He'd only seen it in ancient illustrations from his past life. Beelzebub, the gluttonous calamity that once ravaged the continent in ancient legends, was one of the 7 calamities. The Baskerville family confronted this calamity among others to thwart the demons during a time of crisis. The remnants of this demon were believed to be hidden within the land, manifesting as powerful monsters. Vikir, feeling content, starts to depart from the cave when suddenly an overwhelming sensation hits him, causing him to drop to his knees. What is this intense feeling? It's hunger, a deep, insatiable hunger. His bleeding hand throbs, almost as if it's urging him to satisfy this hunger. He manages to stagger outside the cave, but the hunger gnaws at him relentlessly. His heightened sense of smell leads him to something nearby. The sword extends like a whip towards the corpse of the hellhound he had slain earlier. It begins absorbing the creature, and Vikir feels his body returning to its usual state. Beelzebub must have been famished for quite a while. Vikir surveys the area, noticing the desolation caused by Beelzebub's prolonged hunger. As the sword finishes its absorption and retracts into Vikir's hand, a status screen appears, displaying a newly gained ability, Hemorrhage Hellhound. This skill allows him to induce severe bleeding, even from minor wounds. An epiphany strikes him. What if he could steal abilities from the creatures he defeated? Beelzebub, the gluttonous flying fly, was known for its ability to turn defeated foes into its own essence. Excitedly, Vikir aims to absorb the monster's power, but Beelzebub is warned not to consume it entirely. Vikir needs proof of the kill. Ignoring the warning, Beelzebub continues absorbing, gaining 2 more abilities, Burn Injury and High-Speed Regeneration. The second ability puzzles Vikir until he notices a sewer rat crushed under the monster's remains. This must be its extraordinary capability. Despite acquiring more than enough skills, Vikir decides to lay low until the end of the exam evaluation, where rewards are distributed based on the accomplishments of the young hounds. One hound stood out among the rest, a feat unimaginable considering the caliber of the monster defeated. The scene shifts to Hugo, inquiring about the serverless's killer, only to learn it was Vikir who accidentally ventured into the restricted area. Hugo expresses his admiration since Guardian Knights typically avoid such risks with monsters. However, Barrymore adds that the monster was severely injured. Curiosity drives Hugo's questioning about the potent poison used by Vikir. Barrymore doesn't have the answer, but Hugo is pleased, acknowledging his resourceful son. To Hugo, skill outweighs royal bloodlines or family name. He values capability over ancestry, mentioning that even someone from the Van family could be exceptional. Vikir shares his accomplishments, stating he used chocolate on his spear to exploit the monster's weaknesses, realizing why he chose chocolate from the food storage. Barrymore exits, sensing this conversation between father and son is anything but ordinary. Vikir is challenged when asked why he didn't give more details to Barrymore. Vikir eagerly requests permission to access the 10,000 books library, renowned as one of the Empire's largest, though strictly accessible to top-ranking family members. Hugo warns him of potential danger but surprisingly permits and encourages Vikir to read the Baskerville's 6th technique within the restricted zone. Vikir is astonished by Hugo's approval, considering his past life's knowledge that those from the Van lineage never reached beyond the 4th technique. Vikir's ambition remains undeterred. He aims beyond the 6th technique, determined to reach the pinnacle of martial skill. In his former life, Hugo mastered all 9 techniques. Vikir is resolute in his quest to acquire the most formidable Baskerville books containing techniques to conquer even the 7-grade calamities. He thanks Hugo for his kindness outwardly but inwardly curses his arrogance while vowing to surpass his expectations. In the esteemed halls of the Baskerville Library, Vikir finds himself in uncharted territory. The volumes before him were the very ones he longed to explore in his past life, yet they remained locked away. The Van lineage, no matter their talent, was restricted from knowledge beyond the fourth technique, all in the name of preserving the pure bloodline. In a surprising turn of events, Vikir discovers the book on the sixth technique and manages to unlock it. It's a revelation that Hugo permitted him to access it so swiftly. In his previous life, he had delved into the first four techniques extensively but never succeeded in grasping the fifth. The Baskerville swordsmanship, known as a tooth when one draws it, manifests as red sword energy. As Vikir skims through the book, his true motive draws him elsewhere. He heads towards the exit, leaving the guards in astonishment. When they inquire, Vikir claims to have finished his business, deciding to peruse other books. He ventures into a section considered useless by the guards, knowing precisely what he seeks. Amidst the shelves, Vikir uncovers his hidden treasure, an overlooked book titled A Lurking Ambush. It's a fundamental guide to the first technique, a tome disregarded by pure bloods. The pages may seem worthless to them, but Vikir knows its true value. Before his demise, one of his squad mates found a relic within a nearby dungeon. Inside the coffin lay a single page inscribed with Baskerville handwriting. Hugo was fascinated, scouring the library in search of its match. This very book was rumored to unlock the 10th technique, compelling the family to pursue the remaining 6 pages, even sparking wars with other lineages. After numerous hounds met their demise, finally, all the pages were gathered, paving the way to break through the 7th technique, aiming straight for the 9th. However, this time around, Vikir won't allow the pointless sacrifice of his brothers. He was one of the key individuals who had collected and committed to memory each page's contents. However, he still lacked the original book and hadn't managed to advance past the 4th technique. For others reading this book, it might appear disordered and haphazard, but to Vikir, it formed a cohesive narrative that made sense when the missing pieces were filled in. His aim was clear, to regain the power he once wielded before his previous demise, mastering the 4th technique before he turned 15. As hours passed and Vikir immersed himself in the book, he realized he had concentrated for nearly an entire day, yet he had successfully committed the entire content to memory. But something felt amiss, the absence of the Guardian Knight's presence. Aware of the limitations of his young body, Vikir contemplated if he could achieve the 5th technique. Closing his eyes, he visualized himself facing a blue figure within his mind. Step by step, he went through the slashes, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and finally the 4th. Memories of his past life flooded in. The setbacks, the mockery from peers, all serving as hurdles he was determined to overcome. He refused to let history repeat itself. The blue figure reminiscent of an older Hugo triggered Vikir to unleash the 5th technique, feeling a scorching sensation emanating from his core. Overjoyed by surpassing his past self at an unprecedented pace, an 8-year-old boy triumphantly drew forth the 5th tooth. Vikir is content with his progress, understanding that with sufficient mana support, he can now unleash his new skill. He observes an increase in his mana capacity, elevating from a novice expert to a low-level graduator. It took him 30 years to achieve this stage, although his swordsmanship still doesn't match his former self. Nevertheless, Vikir is unwavering in his pursuit of mastering the 10th technique. Having learned 2 new moves, Piercing Fang and Lurking Ambush, Vikir believes he can face a mid-level graduator, estimating a 100% success rate with an assassination and a 50% chance in a direct confrontation. However, Vikir is now faced with the dilemma of revealing his true strength to Hugo. He feels the need to provide Hugo with something to anticipate. Preparing himself, Vikir sets fire to the book, erasing its contents forever, leaving only himself with knowledge of its true contents. The guards notice the fire and inquire about the situation. Vikir pretends to have been asleep and casually mentions that his magnifying glass might have caused the mishap. Relieved that it was just a minor incident, the guards don't probe further and focus on their duty regarding the ruby mines and assure Vikir not to worry. As Vikir takes his leave, the guards appreciate Vikir's considerate nature. Turning to Barrymore and Patriarch Hugo, they inquire about what he had learned. Vikir responds enigmatically, describing something sharp, soft, and viscous that he felt. This revelation surprises Barrymore and Hugo as they contemplate the possibility of Vikir having learned to use aura. Aura is considered the gateway to swordsmanship, and even prodigies typically train rigorously until the age of 15 to attain a low-level expert status. Hugo calms himself, questioning the extent of what an 8-year-old could truly achieve. Asked to demonstrate what he's learned, Vikir obliges. We shift to the dueling ground where Hugo unleashes a very hungry monster for Vikir to face, a C-rated orc, hungry and unforgiving. As the gate swings open, the orc charges aggressively at Vikir. Despite the surrounding children's worry, Vikir remains composed. With a swift stroke of his sword, he removes one of the orc's arms. Moving deftly, Vikir swiftly targets and removes one of the creature's feet. He notices the orc's shock at the profuse bleeding caused by his B-class skill, Hemorrhage, nullifying the orc's natural regenerative ability. The onlookers are awestruck by Vikir's strength, but he knows that this display isn't enough to impress his father. To show the true extent of his learning, he envelops his sword in a red aura. Barrymore and Hugo are startled by this unexpected development. Witnessing the young master wield aura with a blade leaves them speechless. Vikir utilizes his newfound power to swiftly conclude the duel, startling Hugo to the point of almost leaping from his seat. Barrymore is convinced that Vikir is, at the very least, a low-class sword expert. He marvels at the prodigious talent emerging from their bloodline. However, Hugo is perplexed as to why the orc is bleeding excessively despite its regenerative capabilities. Hugo dismissively explains the orc's weakness, but Vikir interrupts him and Barrymore, inquiring if they have anything stronger than an orc. Hugo smiles with satisfaction at his son's eagerness. He instructs Barrymore to release a captured barbarian, a menacing figure who hasn't been fed in some time. Simultaneously, they bring out a chained-up troll, surprising even Vikir. He asks his father if he can begin immediately, and Hugo grants him permission. As Vikir moves in, the troll attempts to land a punch but misses the nimble figure. Vikir observes, the troll's defenses are formidable. This won't be an easy fight. While the boys around fail to comprehend Vikir's approach, Hugo understands. The troll's regeneration is far stronger than that of orcs. If a lethal blow isn't dealt, it might be wise to withhold striking altogether. The onlookers witness Vikir skillfully evading each incoming strike, seemingly putting on an orchestrated display. Vikir concealed his true strength, aware that easily slaying the beast would raise suspicion. Instead, he strategized to employ the troll's formidable strength against itself. Swiftly dashing in, he sliced the monster's neck, causing the troll to fall to its knees, desperately trying to stem the bleeding. The crowd began to believe that the fight was overwhelming for Vikir, especially as the troll's wound began regenerating. However, Vikir hesitated to use his hemorrhage ability. Despite Hugo suggesting he need not continue, Vikir was resolute in his determination to defeat the troll. He maintained his ruse, claiming that pushing further in the fight would elevate him to greater heights. Coating his sword in aura, Vikir's main goal was to make it appear as though he had ascended to the next level of skill. Amidst the intense battle, Vikir prepared a second technique, eager to witness Hugo's reaction. Unleashing a second fang, he brought the troll down, leaving all spectators astounded. Historically, the fastest mastery of the second fang was achieved at 18 years old, yet here was an 8-year-old accomplishing it before their eyes. Vikir pretended surprise, but Hugo was visibly shaken. How powerful was this boy truly? A week passed, and Vikir sat in the mess halls, still not relishing the food offered. Other hounds avoided him due to his immense strength, but Vikir found amusement in witnessing Hugo's flustered state. Although the acute strength he displayed categorized him as a medium-ranked sword expert who had reached the second technique, his actual level was that of a low-ranked graduator who had already mastered the fifth. After absorbing the troll, he might even surpass a typical graduator in strength. However, Vikir noticed that since the parasite attached to his arm, his hunger had become insatiable. Suddenly, the triplets approached Vikir, surprising him by praising his accomplishments. Initially suspicious of their motives, Vikir resolved to reprimand them later, though he dismissed this as his trust issues acting up. Barrymore discreetly informed Vikir that he needed to visit Hugo. In a meeting room, Hugo and the Morg clan head agent, Adolf Morg, are in discussion regarding the annual joint training between their two clans. Tensions are high due to past injuries during these sessions, highlighting the natural rivalry between the Baskerville swordsmen and the Morg clan magicians. Despite their rivalry, an old emperor once praised the complementarity of their skills, leading to the continuation of joint training. However, recent disputes over the ruby mine have intensified the animosity. Despite this, they are obliged to continue the training per the Emperor's orders. Adolf inquires about the exceptional talent, Vikir, likening him to a once-in-a-century prodigy. Hugo downplays Vikir's significance, disappointing Adolf with his casual response to the praise. Adolf then introduces Camus, a young red-haired girl from the Morg clan, who immediately accuses Hugo of stealing the ruby mine upon entering the room. Adolf tries to defuse the situation, but Camus continues her accusations and divulges disrespectful comments made by Hugo during their journey. Enraged, Hugo's aura flares up as he commands Camus to stop, revealing the lack of manners taught to Morg clan children. Just then, Vikir confidently enters the room, criticizing the Morg clan for attempting to claim something that doesn't belong to them. Adolf notices Vikir's arrival but quickly realizes that Camus has left his side and is now confronting Vikir. Camus's name triggers a memory. She is the Morg clan's steel-blooded empress, renowned for her extraordinary abilities even as a child, surpassing most in both martial prowess and magical aptitude. In her prime, she single-handedly subdued demons in the mountains, gaining fame for her exceptional techniques and her ability to manipulate politicians. However, her story has spanned many years, and for now, she appears as nothing more than a rude 8-year-old girl. Vikir, with a humble tone, remarks that Camus has put in a lot of effort to reach this point but seems to be losing control. His words seem to infuriate Camus, who demands that he repeats his statement. Upon doing so, she conjures an ice spell, intending to explain things in a way Vikir can comprehend. Initially, Vikir is impressed, thinking he might have to confront her in a fight. Camus creates a replica of the Ruby Mine and its surroundings, indicating the mine's location between their territories. She points out the issue. Although the entrance lies in Morg territory, the mine extends into Baskerville territory. As per Camus, the mine should belong to the Morg clan because of its entrance residing within their domain. She expresses frustration that the Baskerville family trespasses and ignores requests to share the land through leasing agreements. Adolf is impressed by Vikir's knowledge, prompting him to intervene. Vikir begins to speak, querying whether the rubies serve as magical ingredients and suggesting that the Baskerville clan may not have much use for them. He dismisses the idea of leasing the territory, noting that the Baskervilles foolishly underestimate the mine's worth. Camus protests, emphasizing Vikir's earlier point about the Baskervilles not needing the rubies. Vikir clarifies that it's not about the rubies, but rather the territory itself. Camus tries to illustrate her argument by mentioning an arm extending into Morg territory and asks who it belongs to now. Vikir grabs her arm, stating that it's now his, catching her off guard. Confused, Camus questions Vikir's actions, to which he clarifies his real intention and grasps a dagger, alarming even Hugo with his son's actions. Camus calls out for her uncle, and Adolf warns Vikir to step back immediately. Vikir releases Camus, and she rushes into her uncle's arms, visibly upset. Hugo steps in, explaining that it was merely a joke common among the Baskerville clan, and reveals that the dagger was, in fact, made of plastic. Adolf is surprised that such a toy would be in Vikir's possession, shaking his head in disbelief. He apologizes for his actions, expressing that he never intended to upset Camus, but clarifies that playful jokes were commonplace among Baskerville children. Vikir laughs it off, feeling that Adolf is taking the joke too seriously. Hugo reassures everyone, mentioning that he already has a solution in mind that he believes will satisfy both clans. However, Camus remains fixed, staring directly at Vikir. Time passes, and we now find ourselves at the friendly competition between the two clans, a platform where the rising stars from each family showcase their skills against one another. The sparring matches among the 15-year-olds usually drew a lot of attention due to their heightened skills. However, this year, all eyes were fixated on Camus and Vikir as they agreed to a bout. The bell signals the start, and Camus declares that she won't hold back, unleashing 4 simultaneous spells, a rare quadric casting that astounds the onlookers. Her magical prowess at such an early stage surprises many, but Vikir, with a smile, effortlessly dodges the array of spells, commenting that while they were flashy, they didn't come close to hitting him. Dismissing Vikir's understanding of magic, Camus creates a sand wall to create distance between them. Vikir casually breaks through the barrier, questioning Camus about the harsh words she's using. Camus charges at him, seemingly acknowledging her defeat. Astounded by how easily Vikir bypassed her wall, she closes her eyes, only to find Vikir standing before her, delivering an unexpected flick that knocks her to the ground. Getting up, Camus questions Vikir's intentions, asking if he's taking it easy on her. Vikir teases her, suggesting it's better to end things before she gets seriously hurt. Unwilling to concede defeat, Camus conjures a double sand wall, believing Vikir can't break through this time. Vikir, slightly bemused, smashes through the walls, stating that he could simply walk around them, but he decides to play along, flicking her in the same spot again. He quips that the arm always belongs to the stronger one. However, Camus refuses to yield and continues casting an array of different spells at Vikir. He's perplexed, thinking she'd have given up by now, but her stubbornness surprises him. He could easily end it in an instant, but the repercussions would be severe. He skillfully evades her attacks, brainstorming a way to conclude the spar without causing an uproar. In these circumstances, his best option is to involve someone else. Glancing behind him, he notices two inexperienced fighters engaged in their own spar, a perfect diversion for his plan. As Camus charges at Vikir, demanding to know why she keeps missing, Vikir spots the amateurs casting spells. Realizing it's time to put his plan into motion, he leaps backward, advising the girl to cast a protection spell. Suddenly, a massive explosion erupts, causing concern to rise in Adolf as he watches over his niece. Amidst the chaos and the smoke, everyone assumes Camus has been severely injured. However, when the smoke dissipates, she's alive, though embarrassed as the fire burnt off her clothes. Feeling exposed and overwhelmed, she starts to cry. Unexpectedly, Vikir approaches and offers his jacket, urging her to wear it. Camus, flustered, asks why he's helping her when they're supposed to be enemies. Vikir simply responds that she can return it if she doesn't want it. Camus, blushing, finds his kindness strange, considering their history. She notices Vikir's arm is bleeding, a result of his aura and his sword before it broke. As the smoke clears, Adolf is relieved to see Camus safe. However, due to Vikir's wound and Camus on the ground, it's unclear who won. Despite Vikir's dominance throughout the spar, the result remains ambiguous. People are astounded by Vikir's physique at such a young age. Time passes, and Hugo walks and chats with Vikir, inquiring about the duel. Vikir mentions it was enjoyable and admits he'd never fought a girl before, explaining his leniency. Hugo warns him against hesitation, using his wound as a lesson. Vikir is shocked by Hugo's unexpected concern. Hugo asks Vikir about the ruby mine, and he suggests it might be better to concede it to the Morg clan. He elaborates, emphasizing the Baskerville's true threat, demonic creatures and barbarian clans. By leveraging a trade for the mine, they can focus on fortifying their defenses. Hugo agrees, patting Vikir on the head and acknowledging the similarity between their plans. As they walk, they encounter Camus again. Hugo and Adolf engage in a discussion while offering various options regarding the mine. They suggest a union between the two houses by marrying Camus to someone from the Baskerville family. Camus refuses, expressing her desire for a partner stronger than her mother, which stirs Hugo's curiosity. Camus looks towards Vikir, shocking both men in the room. Adolf whispers to her, revealing that the key is only a half-breed, not a full-blood. Enraged, Hugo interjects, emphasizing the importance of feelings and asks Vikir for his opinion. Vikir responds compliantly, willing to do anything he's ordered to, leaving Adolf shocked and furious. Meanwhile, Adolf, a sixth circle master and a formidable magician, is among the top tier of spellcasters. However, he has a soft spot for his niece, Camus. Approaching Vikir, Adolf comments on Vikir's talent, indicating it's not sufficient to become Camus's husband. Internally, Vikir dismisses this as their idea, and believes there's no one better suited for Camus than himself. When Adolf lays his hands on Vikir, he's surprised by the boy's sturdiness and asks for an explanation. Vikir, unimpressed, brushes him off, having stopped listening when Adolf wasn't addressing him directly. Camus is taken aback by Vikir's boldness, and Adolf seeks a private conversation with Vikir, despite Camus's objections, asserting it's time for the adults to talk. Shifting to the dueling ground, Adolf proposes a test for Vikir. While Vikir comprehends that revealing his true skill would overwhelm Adolf, the man suggests a handicap, balancing a jar of water on his head. He challenges Vikir to make a single drop spill to win. Vikir sees this as an opportunity and considers his past life where he might have had a 50% chance of assassination and only a 10% chance in direct combat. Now, he doesn't need to fight at full strength, just enough to entertain Hugo. As Vikir charges in, Camus worries, and Adolf erects a water barrier to halt Vikir's assault. Vikir, realizing the challenge of breaching the shield without strong aura, steps back. Adolf prepares a fire spell and launches 4 projectiles at Vikir, initiating the test. Camus yells at Vikir, feeling this duel is unfair, especially since he hadn't used such magic when they sparred earlier. Watching from afar, Hugo oversees the battle, realizing that Adolf is deliberately going easy on Vikir, ensuring he won't need to intervene. Vikir ponders if Adolf has unleashed all his spells and uses his extensive skill and experience in this scenario. He contemplates the possibility of catching the man off guard after defeating him, allowing for a fatal strike. Vikir relentlessly charges at the barrier, earning laughs from Adolf. However, Adolf begins noticing a pattern. Vikir repeatedly targets the same spot, displaying unwavering focus. Yet, Vikir's sword endures significant damage, finally breaking with the last slash. Amused, Adolf remarks that Vikir's actions resemble throwing eggs at a stone wall, and advises him to take better care of his sword. As Adolf continues speaking, water unexpectedly spurts from the bowl, astonishing him. A fragment of Vikir's broken sword has pierced the jar, concluding the challenge. Adolf gives Vikir permission to continue, and even Camus starts to admire the young boy, wondering if this outcome means their impending marriage. Meanwhile, Hugo silently acknowledges that his son might be more cunning than he initially believed. 7 years later, at the Baskerville training grounds, a colossal horned beast emerges, unleashing a deafening roar that sends shivers down the spines of the incoming students. The cadets tense up, prepared to engage in battle against this fearsome creature. Their instructor, Staffordshire, a seasoned guide dog, advises the cadets that when confronting a stronger adversary, it's often wiser to retreat. However, if they must engage, he emphasizes the importance of targeting vital areas and focusing on extremities to hinder the opponent's movements. The confident triplets regain their stride, executing a combined aura attack that cripples the monster. Emboldened by their success, the rest of the cadets join in, swiftly dispatching the beast. Instructor Shire announces their promotion to low-rank sword experts, marking the culmination of their intensive 7-year training. He cautions them that the creatures they'll encounter in the wild won't be captive and starved like this one, presenting a far greater danger. The specter of death always looms, but he instills confidence that the Baskervilles will emerge victorious. As the cadets celebrate their graduation, conversations buzz about which Night Order they will join. Yet, amidst the chatter, all eyes remain fixed on one individual, Vikir. Everyone wonders where he will choose to go. Perched atop the beast that the other cadets teamed up against, Vikir surveys the scene. He had taken down an oxberry, a creature even larger than the cadets, single-handedly. Rumors swirl about his prowess, suggesting he might be a high-ranking sword expert capable of wielding the third fang technique. However, Vikir muses silently to himself that he is currently a medium-ranked graduator, having mastered the fifth fang, a feat that took him 7 years to accomplish, progress slower than he had expected. Despite this, he acknowledges that he's already surpassed his former self in strength. Barrymore approaches and informs Vikir that his father is seeking him. He respectfully greets his aged father and inquires about the scar on Hugo's nose. Hugo recounts how he acquired the scar during a skirmish with a barbarian tribe on the mountains, attacked by a skilled archer. Changing the subject, Hugo congratulates Vikir on his graduation and reveals that he's arranged a position for him. In Vikir's previous life, he was sent as an apprentice to the Pit Bull Knights, facing death regularly deep in the mountains for 2 years, treated like a disposable asset. At 15, Baskerville's children are divided into elites and expendables. Their education and roles differ significantly. The elites learn politics and move into administrative roles, while the expendables are utilized in battle until they reach their limits. The fifth technique creates a distinct divide. Expendables are restricted to learning up to the fourth technique. Vikir doubts Hugo would allow him to pursue the elite course due to his illegitimate status, but is stunned to hear that his father wants him to aspire to become a congressman. It appears Vikir is being positioned as an elite, contrary to his expectations. Hugo explains the responsibilities and is essentially entrusting Vikir with the governance of a small territory. Vikir is taken aback. Is Hugo genuinely assigning such substantial responsibility to an illegitimate child at the age of 15? Hugo asserts that it's only natural given Vikir's exceptional achievements, far surpassing those of other so-called prodigies. As a result, he'll receive appropriate treatment, overseeing a city called Underdog. He asks Vikir if he accepts this new role. Vikir responds affirmatively, pledging to follow any orders. Yet, he poses one question about the ruby mine situation. It seems Hugo promised him a reward, and now Vikir seeks to claim it, hinting at borrowing something undisclosed, which elicits a startled reaction from Barrymore. Vikir suggests that if it's problematic, he can select an alternative, but Hugo confidently approves it, trusting Vikir's judgment and addressing him as his son. Despite receiving affection from Hugo multiple times, Vikir cannot erase the hatred he harbors for him. Walking with Vikir towards his reward, Barrymore pauses to convey Hugo's appreciation for him, explaining that Hugo wants to utilize Vikir's talents without immediately sending him into battle. However, Vikir remains skeptical, feeling that he's only valued if he fulfills his duties. Yet, he acknowledges the opportunity within this situation to leverage his position to enhance his power, openly train without concealing his true abilities. Regardless of any gifts he receives, Vikir is determined to present Hugo with the ultimate gift, death. We arrive at the Baskerville territory, Underdog, and encounter a brazen man barking orders to the attendants to clean the place spotless for Vikir's arrival. The attendants nervously comply, pondering what kind of master they'll have, jesting that he's just a 15-year-old. What could they expect? Suddenly, Vikir strides in. The attendant questions his presence and warns him against entering without permission. However, Vikir's icy glare silences the objection, revealing his status as the new deputy counsel. The attendants try to cover their unease as Vikir commands them to organize a party, arrange women and drinks. They eventually throw a lively party. Enter Chihuahua, a Baskerville with a notable name, now the General Secretary of Underdog. He's furious at the sight of the party on Vikir's first day, already feeling overwhelmed by the difficult responsibilities. He assumes Vikir will follow the corrupt footsteps of the previous counselors, accepting bribes. Unexpectedly, Vikir appears behind Chihuahua, an art he's mastered, appearing at the right moment. Introductions are made, and Chihuahua, being an outsider, fears discrimination from Vikir. But Vikir surprises him, greeting him warmly, acknowledging his knowledge of the city and his hard work. Vikir expresses trust in Chihuahua's competence, assuring him that he won't interfere with his work. Chihuahua is puzzled, wondering why Vikir isn't at the party he organized. Vikir, closing a book he was perusing, remarks on the peculiarities of the local laws, particularly the judicial system. Chihuahua is taken aback, but Vikir reveals that he's already acquainted himself with the legal statutes. Vikir identifies the rampant success of illegal businesses in Underdog's underground, surpassing the law's influence. He asserts that merely shutting down these ventures won't suffice. The heads of the underground must be ousted. Vikir's role is to craft and enforce laws. He unveils his plan to dismantle the illicit economy in less than a week with a proposed law, aiming to disrupt the underground's power structure. At 15, Vikir realizes he can't simply impose laws without proving himself. He needs to orchestrate a spectacle. As Vikir puts it, he must lay out bait for the flies. Chihuahua is puzzled, but the scene shifts to the following day in Underdog's downtown streets. Vikir stands before a large board, addressing a sizable crowd. They appear disinterested and don't take him seriously. He begins to speak, pointing to the laws inscribed behind him, laws that have long been in force. Despite the change in deputy, these laws remain stringent and unchanged. The crowd begins to ridicule the boy, scoffing at the notion that laws hold any weight in this town. Chihuahua seethes at the disrespect, yet Vikir remains resolute, plunging a pole into the ground, shocking everyone. He declares a new rule. As the new deputy, he will reward 100 million gold to anyone who can remove this stake. The entire town erupts in uproar. The citizens are perplexed. Can he really pay such an amount? Vikir, unfazed, increases the reward to 1 billion. Some townsfolk grow angry, warning Vikir to act responsibly. Such a sum isn't something to frivolously wager. Unperturbed, Vikir ups the bounty once more to 10 billion, yet no one dares to attempt pulling out the pole. Speculation swirls. Some think it's a ploy, while others fear Vikir might execute those who show greed. Still, they remain intrigued by the pole, appearing ready to be extracted. Suddenly, a little girl carrying a flower basket asks if she can try. An older man warns her not to, fearing for her life. The girl reveals her sick mother and pleads for a chance to help. Trembling, she approaches Vikir, worried about his reaction. Surprisingly, he simply grants her permission to pull it out. To everyone's astonishment, she effortlessly removes the pole. Vikir's aura flares, causing the girl to fear for her life and apologize to her mother. But Vikir surprises everyone by handing her 100 million gold, asking for her address to send the rest, and patting her head. He states that this is the law, and it must be upheld. This act resonates more profoundly than the previous laws. The simple principle of adhering to the rules touches the citizens' hearts. They believe they finally have a commendable deputy who will establish a society guided by principles. Later, Chihuahua and Vikir converse in his office. Impressed by the young lord's performance, Chihuahua pledges his allegiance, vowing to follow him for life. He assures Vikir that he can now rest easy, knowing he has a deputy like him. This idea was actually borrowed from Camus in Vikir's previous life. She once ruled over a province with a crime rate of less than 1%. However, for Vikir, this is just the beginning, as he unfurls a map of the city. They offered a hefty reward, so now it's time to reclaim that money. Vikir has marked specific areas where potential illegal activities might be taking place. It's essential to intervene and retrieve the illicit funds. Chihuahua is perplexed by how Vikir knows about these spots, but Vikir cryptically mentions that he can sense them. The old man is impressed by Vikir's intuition. Just then, another individual enters, announcing that the Village Youth Autonomy Association has requested a meeting. Chihuahua explains that this group consists of children from influential clans, but it's essentially a highfalutin social club exploiting the city. Vikir smiles knowingly, realizing that his trap has succeeded, and he believes it's time to start eliminating these nuisances from his city. We're ushered into the opulent confines of a prestigious city establishment known as the Burning Suspension Luxury Hotel Club. Deep within this club lies an exclusive room reserved solely for the elite VIP members, charging an exorbitant fee of nearly 2 million gold per hour. The room hosts an extravagant party with the distinguished guests being the 7 members of the Teenage Governing Committee. Bozo 1 indulges in creating a towering structure of champagne glasses, freely pouring an expensive bottle of wine while allowing his companions to drink whatever spills onto the table. Meanwhile, the blonde boy expresses his frustration, lamenting that no matter how lavishly they spend their money, it never seems to diminish. Their affluence owes itself to the Baskerville family, entitled scions of noble houses who lead lives of luxury. These individuals are involved in the abhorrent slave trade and currently on a hunt for barbarians. They ridicule the Baskerville family, citing that the family's expansion efforts at the borders have left them too preoccupied to notice these crimes. It's a mockery, given that the Baskervilles are unwittingly protecting these malefactors. The blonde boy scoffs at his sword-wielding buddies, mocking them as obsessed fools, and brings up the Messimadrano incident. According to him, the committee framed a loyal Baskerville clan, leading to their murder. This clan aimed to stop the corruption within the committee, but they met a tragic fate. Despite this grim topic, they continue their lavish dinner, discussing an upcoming meeting with the deputy consul. Ignorant of Vikir's existence, they assume he'll be an easily swayed newcomer. The blonde schemer proposes an idea to prank the 15-year-old Vikir, asserting their dominance. However, it's a terribly misguided plan. Their scheme involves throwing a grand party and making Vikir foot the bill, a plan that amuses the group and receives unanimous approval. Suddenly, a butler enters, escorting some unwelcome guests to the party. As they arrive, Vikir stealthily slips in behind them, perplexing the group. Assuming Vikir to be an ordered male escort, the butler tries to seize him by the hair, but ends up with a broken wrist, howling in pain. Vikir introduces himself to the group, causing a realization to dawn upon them. They inquire about his early arrival, to which Vikir coolly responds that they requested his presence. As the group attempts to formulate a plan, Vikir grows impatient with their chatter and slams his hand onto the table. Infusing mana, he triggers a champagne tower explosion using resonance, a feat that shocks the blonde. He realizes Vikir's graduation from the academy, noticing his mid-rank sword expertise, and pleads for his friends to act. However, even as the man realizes he's outmatched, Vikir casually strolls up and claps one of the boys on the shoulder. In the man's panic, he hastily promises to cover the alcohol expenses. Vikir responds, questioning whether they expected him to foot the bill for the wine they consumed. His reaction snuffs out their scheme, causing the group to scramble, desperately seeking a different response. Attempting to salvage the conversation, they claim it was all a test. Supposedly, with Underdog's recent fall, they wanted to ascertain the new deputy's resistance to such enticements. Vikir, dissatisfied with their explanation, lands a punch to the gut of one man. His action conveys to the group that they've misjudged the situation. Only the master can test his dogs, not the other way around. Seizing the wound of his victim, Vikir doesn't ease the pressure, causing the man to writhe in pain. He scolds them, calling them spoiled brats who have never truly faced terror. Lifting the culprit off the ground, Vikir demands to know if the blonde boy comprehends why things have turned out this way. The boy struggles to respond, but Vikir silences him by stomping his foot down, indicating that he's next. Despite the group's mounting rage, Vikir maintains a smile. He's no fool and is well aware of the committee's illicit activities, kidnapping, slave trafficking, and conspiring against the Baskervilles. He confronts the boys, continuing his verbal onslaught, determined to teach them a lesson and punish those who fear nothing. Some time passes, and Vikir and Chihuahua stand looking at the committee members, now beaten and locked up. The blonde boy curses and vows revenge once he's out of the cell. Chihuahua seems a bit concerned that Vikir might have taken things too far. However, Vikir doesn't share that sentiment. For him, the torment of these boys has only just commenced. These individuals were supposed to prevent the very corruption they propagated. Even now, they're spewing curses and wielding their blades against the Baskervilles. Their furious expressions show they believe they can challenge the main family. It's clear they haven't learned their lesson yet. As the sun sets, their execution looms, and Vikir plans to eliminate everyone associated with them. Reality dawns upon the boys as they desperately grasp at life. Chihuahua questions Vikir about the potential response from the families. Surely, they won't stand by as their sons are executed. Vikir, unperturbed, dismisses such concerns, believing the clans won't be able to do much. He assures Chihuahua not to worry about evidence for now. If none is found, he can fabricate it if necessary. It doesn't matter to Vikir anyway, as he'll soon leave this place and be deployed to battle. He informs the boys in the cage about their crimes, and the blondie quickly begs for mercy, stating he'll accept any punishment. Vikir briefly ponders this, but his thoughts are interrupted by a man who arrives downstairs, claiming he has prepared everything as requested by the young master. This man expresses delight that what he brought is finally here, and empties out a bag full of torture equipment. He boasts about his 30 years of experience in torture but admits he hasn't seen some of the tools he brought. Vikir, satisfied with the equipment, offers to teach the man some new techniques, but it's clear that even 3 decades of torture won't prepare him for what's about to happen. Vikir, feeling a sense of nostalgia, lays out the tools, reminiscing about using them in his past life to extract information from his enemies. He rolls up his sleeves and inquires about the boys' resolve, indicating he's ready to thoroughly enjoy this if they don't talk. Meanwhile, news of the arrest of the 7 corrupt nobles who were living in luxury together spreads. The citizens seem to hold a deep disdain for these men and are pleased that they're finally facing consequences. However, they speculate that due to their privileged bloodlines, they might only receive a slap on the wrist. Many argue about the new deputy's actions in giving away 10 billion just on his word and whether he can truly make a difference in the complicated political landscape. As expected, the 7 families send gifts as apologies to the deputy consul. Vikir received their surrender and the plea for forgiveness. He opened the briefcases filled with gold, and many believed that these foolish boys would be set free. However, Vikir wasn't swayed by money. He chose to execute all 7 of them, displaying their heads in the city square. He took measures to preserve the flesh to prolong the display. A sign was placed above, listing their crimes and the punishments allotted. Vikir looked over the square, smiling, believing that people should understand by now that he doesn't tolerate breaking the law. Not even for nobles. He saw this as a means to bring about change in the city and declared a kind of war against the underground. He informed Toa to brace themselves for what was coming, as they were part of this new plan. Skipping ahead to the plan, Chihuahua and Vikir were dressed for a high-end party, with Vikir appearing as a slave locked in a cage. Chihuahua expressed concern about whether this plan would actually succeed, but Vikir urged him to have faith. The event they attended was an underground slave auction, and Chihuahua was astonished to see Vikir in disguise as one of the slaves.